You are listening to 52 Ways, a podcast by Scott and Christian Milford.
This is how you love one another, love one another.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the 52 Ways podcast. My name's Scott. This is Christian over here.
Yeah, I'm Christian.
Hi, Christian. And we're ready here for week number 13, which means this is episode 13 out of 52 that we're going to do this year as we continue our effort to figure out how to do a better job of loving the way that Jesus showed us while he was here on earth. And I'm excited about today's teaching. Before we get into that, though, just a couple of quick things. I want to share that this weekend at Skyline Church in O'Fallon, Illinois, which is our home church, I'm going to be bringing a message actually tailored to the content of this 52 Ways podcast. And real excited to do that. And I can't wait to get in there and share this with everybody. Going to dive in, not at a real deep level on this because we dive in every week at a pretty deep level, but I am going to share a couple of the weeks that we've talked about kind of as examples of the power of the ways to follow the example of Jesus, both in his actions and in his teaching. And I'm going to make it fun. I'm going to hopefully really deliver a message that has a lot of punch to it, because I think this, as you know, if you've listened to this podcast before, I'm pretty passionate about this idea. And I think that this is what the world needs to help us get out of this rut we're in, where everybody loves to hate each other. Gosh, this was the week where Will Smith put the slap down on, what was his name? I always forget that guy's name.
Chris
Rock. Yeah. And not that directly ties to what we're, calling as the problem here in our world, but it kind of is. I mean, a rude comment was made. And
I think we should debate that.
He decided to go and voice his displeasure, not even just voice, but, physically lash out in response. And, that kind of stuff's been happening forever. But, how would Jesus have handled that situation? How did he handle that situation when he was faced with people?
He said, turn the other cheek.
Yeah, he said, turn the other. He didn't say slap the cheek. I guess that, Chris Rock kind of handled it the way he should have. He didn't punch him back. He didn't slap him.
That'd be
back.
really fun if it got into a big fight.
I was thinking about that.
That was so much fun. That'd be so cool.
If they had gotten into a brawl on the stage at the Academy Awards, we'd be talking about that for the rest of 2022.
Imagine if it was like The Rock, though, that made the comment. Will Smith came up there looking up there like.
Well, Will Smith's got some guns too.
Well, not as much as The Rock.
Yeah, nobody does. That I know that. See, The Rock reminds me of my friend Greg Stoff.
Yeah.
Greg is incredibly built, and but he's not The Rock.
Mm-mm.
But he's yeah. Anyway, I'd like to see them duke it out. But anyway, it's a good example, though, we're going to talk about today. It actually gets into this idea of confrontation and how Jesus handles a confrontation from religious leaders. So we'll get to that in a second. But anyway, please, if you're in the area here in the St. Louis area, 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock, Skyline Church in O'Fallon, Illinois, this Sunday morning. And then it'll be live at skyline.church. I guess maybe you got to go to the Facebook page.
YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Yeah. Well, maybe not Instagram.
It might be on Instagram now.
Yep.
But you can find the live version that way. So hoping to use that video from the sermon this weekend to send out to a bunch of churches. And I'm hoping I get a chance to go speak about this at a lot of places and really just turn a lot of people on to the idea that there's an opportunity for us as the body of Christ to do something about the messed up state of the world right now. And that's the mission we're on. And I'm going to do everything I can, along with my son here, Christian, to make a dent in that problem. All right, Christian, anything you want to enlighten us on before we dive into our example here today?
No.
Are you sure?
Mm-hmm. What am I supposed to?
Yeah, you're supposed to.
No,
I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay. Dang it, what did I forget?
How was school today?
School was fine.
Yeah.
It was actually kind of fun.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Project?
I did that yesterday. Yeah.
Your 3D printed pearly gates project.
Yep. It was fun.
Yeah, it was good. And I see that you've calmed down from your frustration over the 3D printer messing up on you again.
Oh, yeah.
Seems to be an ongoing problem.
It is.
That's an amazing machine, but boy, it takes a mechanical engineer to keep it running.
I'm not a mechanical engineer.
He's got hot glue all over it.
There's so much stuff. I can name 10 things that I fixed with that thing.
Yeah.
Twice some
See,
of the things.
That's what I mean. Like it takes the brain of a mechanical engineer type person, way of thinking,
Mhm.
because if that happened to me the first time it broke, I just would have been like, all right.
I can see that. Yeah.
I don't know what to do with it. It's broke.
Yeah.
I'd have taken it in and
What
had
was the
somebody
first problem? I think the first problem was
clogged nozzle.
no.
It was the sticky platform.
Yeah.
Okay, they don't care about this stuff.
Yeah, they don't care about this stuff.
But you fixed a lot of different things on it for sure.
There's still ongoing problems.
There is. Maybe we need to get you a much more elaborate
resin.
model.
There's a resin printer.
A resin printer.
Yeah, it's really cool.
If you have more questions on resin printers, you can email Christian at CaptainCM.
Don't tell my email. That's not my email, by the way.
Oh, it's close. It's just a misspelled version of it.
Mhm.
All right. So we're going to dive in still in the book of Matthew here. So what we're doing, if you're just now joining us, we're going all the way through the Gospels. And by my calculations,
We're about 1/4 done.
Yeah, we're going to get through. Well,
I meant with the podcast,
I
with the
guess
52 ways.
Well, we should be all the way through Matthew then from that perspective.
Crap.
But I think we're going to spend a little more time in Matthew because a lot of the stories repeat. So we won't talk about some of the repeated stories multiple times. But I think we'll end up right around the end of the Gospel of John here at the end of the year. And that'll get us through 52 ways to love like Jesus loved. And then at that point, we're going to assemble all of this into a book, which I'm super excited about, make that available. And I'm going to travel around and speak on it and do workshops and continue to do some sort of the podcast. We'll see what the podcast ends up being, but big vision for what this thing is going to become. And I'm honored that God put this on our hearts to do, and we get a chance to do this for all of you. So let's go to Matthew 17, verses 24 through 27. Seems like just a simple little, I guess, 4 verses here, 24,
Fish.
25, 26, 27.
Guys,
And what do we call this one?
this is an analogy of God and fish.
Yeah, but the title of the podcast is called Fishy Coins.
Fishy coins.
There's something fishy about these coins. Yeah?
That wasn't funny.
Yeah, it wasn't funny at all. But the title is kind of catchy. Fishy coins. What does that even mean? So the idea is we're going to explain what fishy coins means. All right. So Matthew 17, 24. So here's what it says. It says, on their arrival in Capernaum, their arrival meaning Jesus and his disciples, the collectors of the temple tax came to Peter and said, doesn't your teacher pay the temple tax? So the first question is, what is the temple tax? Christian, do you know what the temple tax is?
No.
Yeah, you do.
Oh, I do. Okay. I thought I was supposed to pretend like I didn't know what it was. The temple tax is a tax done to I know you told me this a lot. Oh boy.
Mr. Short-term memory man here.
College grade memory, guys.
Yeah,
I actually legally have a college grade memory, which is actually not as impressive right now because I'm almost a college.
You're almost to college. When he was like in 5th grade.
It was so cool in 5th grade. I was like, guys, I have a college grade memory.
Okay.
Back to
so what is the temple tax?
Hold up. Temple tax is tax to maintain the temple.
Yeah, kind of. There's probably some greed associated with it. So it's the tax that the religious leaders would have people pay as they use the temple.
That's aside from giving.
Yeah, aside from their whatever offerings they would make, and aside from the Romans' taxes that they had to pay, that the tax collectors would, abuse them. We've talked about that in previous episodes. But this was an additional tax that the religious leaders would have the people.
Was it once a year?
I don't know exactly, although I have a feeling they would milk it for all it's worth. So as you're coming into the temple, or maybe in this case, as they're entering a town, they were asked, are you going to pay this tax? So maybe it's in the various, places of worship or gathering places. They would ask for it.
How did they know that they didn't pay it yet?
Well, because they were new to this area.
Well, what if they paid it for another temple?
They might have.
So it's one for each temple that you enter the town.
Well, I think there's one main temple, but there's probably other gathering places.
Well, how do they know that they didn't pay it?
I don't know. Maybe you should ask Jesus whenever you die
I
and see
will.
him. Okay.
Yep.
So anyway, so they asked Peter, are you guys going to pay the temple tax or what? And just kind of a knee-jerk reaction. I'm sure Peter is like,
yes,
he says,
definitely. Yes.
Yeah, he does.
Yes.
And he says, he, meaning Jesus.
Matthew, you got any money?
He does pay the temple tax. And then Peter went into the house. And then it says, but before he had a chance to speak, Jesus asked him, what do you think, Peter? So this is pretty funny. So Peter, he gets asked this question. His heart's beating a little bit. He's like, oh boy, they just put me on the spot. And he walks in to see Jesus and say, Jesus, what do we do? What do we do? And before he even says anything, Jesus is like, so Peter, what do you think? And he's like, He's using
It's
those
that like stereotypical
crazy
type of
magic
thing.
powers
Yeah,
again.
magic powers, guys. I have magic powers, don't you know?
Yeah. Or Jesus
I can't
was,
name anything.
or
but
Jesus was like standing right there near the door.
I like
and-
magical powers.
Yeah, I like
better.
magical powers better. Okay. So anyway, he says, what do you think, Peter? Do kings, and then this is Jesus's question to Peter,
This is a cool analogy, by the way.
do kings tax their own people or the people they have conquered? And Peter says, they tax the people that they have conquered. Well, then, Jesus said, the citizens are free. However, we'll get to that next part. Okay, so Jesus says the citizens are free. So what this basically means is, no, we don't have to pay the taxes because God is the owner of this temple, of this place of worship. So we don't have to pay a tax. And I, Jesus, am God's son. So, rulers don't tax their own people. They only tax the people that they've conquered. Although that's not entirely true. I mean, people, they
I don't think the Romans were taxed.
the Romans weren't taxed.
I don't think so.
Only the non-Romans were taxed in the
Yeah.
Roman Empire.
I think whenever it's an empire, that means that like you conquered multiple nations. I might be
Hmm.
wrong with that.
If you know anything about that, reply down below and answer that question.
But I have a
regardless,
question.
Yeah.
Who were the conquered people in his analogy relating to God?
Only the people that they have conquered.
So who
I
has
guess it would just
God
be
conquered?
the non Jews.
But he came for. That doesn't really make sense because he came for all of us.
Yeah. Well, I know, but I think in this case, what they're saying is, as Jesus being the Son of God,
Mhm.
and
So do we need to pay
the
it?
Jews being the chosen people, they don't have to pay it.
Do we need to pay it?
Well, it's not asked of us anymore.
Oh, it's not.
The
So there's
temple
not a
tax?
temple tax?
There's no more temple tax.
How do you know?
I don't know.
I bet there is.
I've never been asked to pay a temple tax.
We could still give a
I've been
temple
asked to
tax.
tithe,
Yeah.
but nobody's gonna.
I bet there's a
crucify me
temple
if I
tax.
don't.
I bet there's a temple tax in Jerusalem.
There could be. Maybe we can look up
Maybe
that.
we
If you
need
know
to-
anything about that, let us know. that
Maybe
in
we
the
need to pay
comments.
for it. No.
Maybe we do. Okay, you got a lot of questions today, Christian.
Trying to put you in a spot.
Yeah, I don't know everything. If I know it, I'll answer it. If I don't, I won't. But so the point here, though, is Jesus being the Son of God. He's telling Peter, yeah, we don't have to do it. But then he says, however, we don't want to offend them. So go down to the lake, and we'll get back to this in a minute, but I want to read it because it's so crazy. Go down to the lake, throw in a line, and open the mouth of the first fish you catch, and you will find a large silver coin. Take it and pay the tax for both of us.
Kind of weird.
Jesus gets a little weird here.
Why doesn't he just like pull one out of his pocket?
I don't know. Well, I think he wants to make an analogy of and maybe also
Comparing
perform
God to a
miracle.
fish.
Yeah, I guess. So, but it's also interesting. Take the first fish that you catch, meaning you're going to catch multiple, but you do this in the first one. So you
Mhm.
really think Peter went down and caught a fish, took the coin out of its mouth, and then continued to fish? Don't you think it's most likely that he'd be like, "Whoa, there is a coin," and he like took
Yeah.
off to go pay the tax?
Yeah. He's like, haha.
That's
I
what I
have
would
silver
do.
coin.
All right. So let's break this down. So what does this have to do with loving the way that Jesus loves us? I think that's maybe the first question you're asking. It's a really great story, but there's a lot of things that we can take from this that we can apply in our lives in the way that we deal with people that we run into every day. So the point I want to make is Jesus didn't want to offend the religious leaders. So here they're trying to put Peter and Jesus on the spot. It is kind of interesting that they didn't ask Jesus this question. They asked Peter,
Yeah.
and it could
Maybe
be
they.
because,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Maybe they just first person that they saw. or
It could be the
something.
first person they saw, or it could be that they knew Jesus would say something brilliant. And they
Like,
didn't
dang
wanna-
it. We'll get one of his disciples, the
Yeah,
weak ones.
Exactly. And we know Peter will stick his foot in his mouth. So
Mhm.
we'll ask him. But anyway, but they're trying to set him up, and the Pharisees, religious leaders, did this all the time to Jesus, and he was always ready for him. So Jesus knew that he was trying to set him up, but he didn't bite. Fish analogy. He didn't bite. He didn't take the bait.
Also
he
not
didn't
funny.
let the hook set. So he instead didn't want to offend. Now let's talk about this idea that the gospel is offensive, because and I've read several articles about this particular passage, and one of the things that religious teachers and Bible scholars are quick to say is, oh, but you know what, the gospel is offensive. We're supposed to be offensive. And I think that, like Paul in Romans, when he talks about that, I'll throw this out. I'll probably get some disagreements from some of the listeners here, but that's all right. I think some people hold that as sort of a trophy. Like it's a goal to make the gospel as offensive as possible because Paul said the gospel is going to be offensive. I don't think it's a goal. I don't think we want to make it offensive and turn people away in the process. I think what Paul was saying is just by the nature of it, by saying this is the only way to God, that it's going to be offensive.
Mhm.
But we don't have to make it more offensive by being staunch and ugly and judgmental and rigid about it. I think we just have to accept the fact that it's going to be offensive. And in this case, Jesus could have made his status as Jesus, as the Son of God, offensive by throwing it in the faces of these religious leaders. But instead, he backs off and he says, no, you know what? I don't want to offend. That's not my purpose here today. I have bigger fish to fry. Oh my gosh. Am I a dad or what?
I'm not talking to you.
You're just staring ahead
Yeah.
like the worst thing in the world just happened to you. So Jesus had bigger fish to fry. He didn't want to offend in this moment, even though he totally could. He could have pulled the I'm Jesus card. And putting that into today's terms, pastors oftentimes do pull the I'm a pastor card. I knew a pastor one time that probably got out of 10 speeding tickets by saying, well, I pastor the local church here, and I was
You
on
should
the
tell
way
me
to,
afterwards who that is.
yeah, I will. But he had a way of using the pastor role to get out of speeding
Wow,
tickets.
that's
Yeah.
actually pretty cool.
Well, I don't know. Maybe that's another.
You used to be a
theological-
pastor, right?
I did, but I never
Yeah.
used to get out of it. I never got pulled over.
Well,
but
yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I
Mom could
ever-
have pulled that card.
Yeah. I'm a pastor's wife. So anyway, but he chooses not to do this. And I think that, just on if we ended the podcast right now and said, how many times are we like attacked verbally, or in Chris Rock's case, attacked physically, or Will Smith's case, him and his wife were attacked verbally, and he chose to take action. In this case, Jesus chose not to take action. And I think that's consistent with what Jesus did and what he taught during the Sermon on the Mount. We learned a lot about that.
Yeah, but he still roasted the Pharisees a lot.
He does roast them a lot.
Which
that's a good point. So, I'm not going to always claim to know what Jesus's motives are at every turn. But in this case, he chose not to offend. And really, there was probably no upside.
Yeah, actually, I have a theory with this. I don't know how I'm going to explain it. But so I don't know.
Give it your best shot.
Okay. So my theory is that God knew that that something would go in the wrong direction if he did not pay the tax, and like maybe they would get him in trouble for that. Then he wouldn't be able to say something that would be in God's plan.
Easily could have been a timing thing.
Yeah, he was just like, look, I know if I don't pay this, then something's not going to go right, and it won't be according to my plan. So I'll just go have this fish have a coin in his mouth, and
there's many examples of where
be.
Jesus follows the lead of his Father in the moment.
Yeah,
where if the Father reveals to him what to do in these various situations. And I think this might be one of those things.
That wasn't so complicated. I thought it would be a lot more.
That was a really good point. And, like there's early on in the miracles that Jesus did, he would tell people, no, don't tell anybody about this miracle, because he didn't want it to get out quite yet. So now there was the getting back at these folks for trying to set him up was not Jesus' priority. But and then the fish thing, I want to mention this just real quick. So this idea of the fish. So Jesus is really paying. He's using this analogy of paying for our taxes as an example of the concept of grace. Oh, Christian's yawning big time over there. Man, I'm boring him. More dad jokes about fish fries. Is that what you need?
Please no.
So get you one of those Celsius drinks, let you guzzle.
No, please. That makes me even worse.
So anyway, Jesus is using this idea of paying these taxes. He's giving the coin for Peter to go pay the tax, even though Peter didn't do anything to earn the coin, unless you want to call going fishing earning it. But there's a coin in the mouth of the fish. So Jesus, in a miraculous way, he pays the price for this temple tax, just like he pays the price for our sin, just like he did on the cross. So I think there's just a parallel here to be made to grace and the way that Jesus plays this out. So I think that's a good teaching for us to take away. But it's not necessarily the primary teaching that we're going to focus on here, but that's where we get the fishy coins, obviously. And I think that's just an interesting thing. I've even seen some memes before, like a fish with a big coin in its mouth. And I don't know if I really ever fully digested this verse and studied it as closely as this.
One thing I don't know if for real, if like in the Bible or in God's in the gospel, if like the apostles really knew that God could be rich or Jesus could be rich if he wanted to.
Hmm.
I think that was something that has to
Yeah.
do with this. I don't know. Like
That's interesting.
he probably thought of like whenever if I don't know, I'm gonna base this off of the chosen. Did it really happen whenever Nicodemus gave them money? I don't know.
But during their whole big
Yeah,
conversation,
like afterwards. You remember? I don't really know if that's true or not.
I don't even remember Nicodemus
Um,
giving him money.
Grandpa's probably doing something right now. But
So
so,
what's your question though?
so my point is like the disciples may have thought, okay, that was like we kind of got lucky with that if we got money from this guy, but then like to actually know that like something that can by super low probability Jesus said would happen, like they're like, okay, this guy if he really wanted to, he can make us millions if he
So do
wanted
you
to. And
think
also with the fish, I guess with the very first time they went fishing, they knew that. But I
Yeah.
guess just reinforcing that, saying, look, if I wanted to be rich, I wanted to, but that's not in my plan.
so do you think they were like, Jesus,
Come
if you can
on.
make one coin in a fish mouth, you can make a million.
Yeah.
What's stopping you? Come on, let's
Yeah.
live large.
Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that probably did go through their mind.
Yeah.
They're just
"Come on,
boneheaded
just
guys.
Keep on giving us some
You
money.
know? They're like, come on, give us some better food, something.
Yeah.
All right, so let's a couple other points I want to make here. So Jesus wanted to go the extra mile, and that this is a theme in this whole thing. Like he didn't want to just kind of ignore the question. He didn't want to weasel his way out of paying this tax. He went the extra mile, even to the extent that he had Peter go experience something pretty awesome in order to get the coin. And I think that I think that the example for us to follow there is as we work with people, and let's go back to what we learned from Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount. If you get sued and somebody sues you for your shirt, well, then give them your coat too. Wasn't that what it was? I think that was one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there was one more part to that I can't remember right now. But yeah, so it's this idea that when we're dealing with people, when we're responding to people, make the extra effort for them. Show them that you're willing to do extra for them, even when you don't have to. Jesus didn't have to pay the tax, yet he took the extra effort to do so.
Interesting that they call it a tax whenever you don't need to pay it.
Yeah, I know. Why couldn't they call it maybe they did need to pay it. Maybe it was required.
Maybe it was like if you're a Jewish person, then you're like obligated, like you're not going to heaven if you, I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it was a guilt thing. I'm sure they
Because
used
like
their
tithing
authority.
was like the same exact thing, but I don't think you would like get punished if you didn't pay it.
You might. I mean, there was some.
I don't know. I guess
brutal
just think it's
religious
weird.
leaders.
Like I'm applying that to today's real world. But if like somebody was saying, hey, if you're going to this church, you have to, or even if you're just someone who's Jewish, you have to pay this tax, and like they don't, like the news would be up in the air over that type of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and in some countries, I'm sure it happens. It didn't happen here, but well, let's get back to this idea of going the extra mile. So Jesus obviously went the extra mile for us when it came to suffering and dying on the cross. So there's all these parallels to the way that Jesus went the extra mile, and he's kind of ramping up here in his ministry as he does this. But I think that translates well into our lives today, and it can be something as simple as, like, from a generosity standpoint, how much do we tip? Are we constantly trying to weasel out of every dollar of a tip that we can? Like, the service wasn't great, so we're going to tip 10% instead of 15 or 20. Or how often do we say we're going to go the extra mile and tip 50%?
What?
Yeah. What's wrong with that? Why don't we tip 100%?
100%.
During COVID, I heard a lot of stories of people, especially since waitresses and waiters weren't able to work very much, where when we were able to open some places back up, people were tipping extraordinary amounts and really helping people out. It was some really awesome stories. A few years ago, many years ago, there was a book that came out by Bill Hybels, pastor up in Chicago, called A Walk Across the Room. And it was a beautiful book about evangelism. And
That's such a book you'd read.
Oh, yeah. But we read it at Skyline as a staff.
Never mind.
What's wrong
It
with
just
that?
sounds like a book that you'd read.
Okay. I don't know if I should be offended or not.
No offense. It just seems like
a book. But from a ministry standpoint, from an evangelism standpoint, the point was Bill Hybels told a story about he was at a party somewhere, and there was this person that was standing just simply across the room, 20 feet away from him. And I don't know, I don't remember if he saw something in their eyes that made him think that maybe something was not good, or if it was just somebody he didn't know, or I forget what it was exactly. But in that moment, he said, I have a choice. I can either choose to stand here and not go talk to that person, or I can choose to walk across the room and go talk to that person. And there was an example, and it's been too long since I read it, but something really big came out of the conversation that he had with this person, whether that person became a ministry partner for him, or that person was in the midst of something, horrendous in their life, and Bill was able to help them through it. I don't remember. But the whole book is built on this idea that just a simple, like, stick your hand out and introduce yourself to somebody and smile and listen to what they have to say can make all the difference. But in the moment, we might be busy. We might be preoccupied with stresses that we have about our day, about sons who are 17 years old who are driving us nuts, maybe a daughter that's in their teens.
I can name a few things for that one.
Yeah. Or our work, our jobs, or our spouses, or our friends, or our financial situation, or whatever it is. But what Jesus does, and if we're going to be more Christ-like in the way that we deal with people, this is one of the things we can do. We can rise above our own circumstances, and we can think of others, and we can go listen and really take the time to listen, and not be thinking about what we're going to say next and what we're worried about, but really just to hear what the people have to say. And I think that Jesus sets this example for us so well. Heck, he even was listening to Peter's conversation with the religious person that asked him about the taxes. Jesus was in tune with what was going on, and he communicated with Peter on a level that Peter would understand. So even when you're busy, take a second and go talk to that person at work who looks like they're having a bad day, or maybe you overhear a phone call they have over the cubicle wall, and they just had it out with a client, or they just had it out with the boss, and they're sitting over there with sweating and jittery and scared and feeling bad about themselves. Go the extra short distance to walk across the room and have a conversation with them, and just say, hey, do you want to talk? And it's amazing what that can do to lift somebody's spirits. And in the spirit of representing Christ, being the hands and feet of Christ, if they know you are a Christ follower and you're the one that shows compassion on them, that can go a long way. That can show them who Jesus is. And that's what this whole thing is all about. And so this idea that the gospel is always offensive, I just reject that we have to twist things in a way and lean on this idea that, well, the gospel is offensive, so we can say whatever we want. No, that is not it at all. Jesus also calls on blessed are those who are the peacemakers. So whenever somebody offends us, we don't have to always, retaliate with words that are going to justify the gospel, or words that are going to justify whatever it is that we did. In this case, Jesus didn't do that. He had other priorities. And I think that oftentimes we can choose to have other priorities as well as we work with people in these situations. Okay, so I think we're going to start wrapping up here. I hope that was helpful for all of you as we go through another one of the 52 ways that Jesus showed us how to love one another. And just as a reminder, I'll be speaking at Skyline Church in O'Fallon, Illinois, 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock this coming Sunday morning. And you can also catch it at Skyline's website, on the Facebook page, and the YouTube site. You can watch it live there as well. So please do all the things where you you subscribe to the podcast, you comment, you rate it. It goes a huge way in helping us get more listenership and more viewership. And we need it because we're a tiny little speck of a podcast at this point. And while we have a good 50 or 60 people that seem to be listening to it each week or watching it, that's a good start. But we need that to be 500 or 600 and 5,000 and 6,000 and 50,000 and 60,000. And that's very possible with podcasts like this. But it's only if we're doing our job well and bringing you something that really matters. And I pray that we are. So any final words of wisdom, Christian Milford?
Mm-mm.
All right. That's it. Be well, my friends.
You love one another, love.